Well, it's been a minute. It's been a while since the last time I made a video, but today I'm finally going to tackle the anatomy of a cinematic FPV shot. Welcome back to Striking FPV R&D. My name's Ashton, and this is Chalong Reservoir. 4.3 million cubic meters of water storage that supplies the south of Phuket in the south of Thailand, where I live. Also happens to be the site of probably one of my favorite FPV shots that I've done, that I shot last year. Last year. It's been that long. Anyway. Anyway, some of you asked on that last video how I actually went about planning and shooting the whole thing, editing, the whole works. And so I'm going to try and tackle that in this particular video. And the way I'm going to do it is by actually walking you around the reservoir the same way that I first discovered it. So about a year ago, kind of halfway through the pandemic, I started to realize that I wasn't very fit anymore. I decided to find a place to exercise with my wife. We used to find other places around Phuket that were like reservoirs and places to go walking around. But I just remembered that Chalong Reservoir was a thing. So when we first got here, we parked our motorcycles where everybody parks the motorcycles, because this is a really popular place for exercise in the evenings actually. As I started walking along the path, I started to realize, hang on, this could be an FPV video. It was just one of those things, long distance. It's not just a circle, it's not a completely round reservoir. There's actually shape to it. And so as we're walking along here and there, I kept, pointing at things like, oh, that's a gap I could fly through. Oh, that's some, water kind of foliage stuff that I could kind of fly between. And that became the start of what this eventually ended up becoming. So just, I'll continue walking and you'll be able to see more. So now we're kind of ending up at the furthest part from the dam itself. Also four-legged friends here. But yeah, if you look out over there, basically that is the dam. The reservoir and the dam all the way on that side. I believe where I ended up flying from, this is the furthest away. It was almost a kilometer, which in terms of long-range FPV, it's not actually that long. But we're not talking about like straight line of sight, across the water, no disruptions, no obstacles to deal with in terms of the signal. Here we actually have foliage, we've got, various outcroppings. And so I didn't really want to take too much of a risk and go any deeper into this area than I had to. So like around that corner it goes even deeper in, but it gets quite enclosed, and I feel like that could have been problematic. You don't really know how to plan that well from just the ground. So like I've said before, I did a lot of daydreaming, but you wouldn't really know what you're dealing with until you actually get up in the air. And so I had that for the first time. It was like a week before the final shot that ended up being the video. I came here and I flew, but I flew with too dark an ND filter, so that footage came out really moody. Also too dark, but moody is a nice way of saying it. But the great thing about that, obviously it wasn't too dark in the goggles, it gave me a much greater insight into how the obstacles played into the whole flight from the air, because it's a very different environment from the air. And so that's the crucial thing, I will say. As much as I could daydream and plan every single time I walked around here with my wife, ultimately nothing gives you the perspective that an actual FPV drone does. So having that first flight was crucial to being able to really visualize how I would end up finally flying for the final video. So anyway, let's keep going. So as we came round the bend, I then looked up and I saw this beautiful sight, and I'll show you right now. Tree. Look at that tree. It's nice and tall, it's got a kind of thing, but most importantly, there's that gap. And of course, gotta fly through that gap. So I know that I'm kind of going around lowish across the water in certain places. And so it's that juxtaposition, like don't just fly low, fly high as well. And that's, I think, probably one of the higher points in the video aside from the flip. We'll get into that later. But basically that's, you know, a big moment. Whenever you're planning anything along these lines, you're looking for moments, kind of points that make the thing interesting, those little key areas. And so that happened to be one of them. So yeah, just to give you an idea, there's a dirt road here. Like, this reservoir is a bit weird in that regard, like it's not fully complete. And so, you know, just thought I'd show you. It's one of the weird quirks. But the real thing is what's around the next corner over there. Oh yeah. Questionable? Oh yeah. Could I? Maybe. Should I? Hell no, that's expensive. If I lose it in the water, no, you can't, no, we're not talking about this. We are definitely not talking about this. For reals though, this is, I debated this every time I've walked past it. I must have walked past here like, I don't know, 50 times at this point over the last year or so. And every time I look at it, I'm like, maybe I could do that, maybe I could do that. But it's just, I haven't done anything that acrobatic before. And certainly, you know, I could probably do it. I'm pretty sure I could do it. But one small mistake and it's gone. So definitely when I was flying it, I was like, will I? And that was the crucial thing. Before I was always wondering what it would be like when I came across it. But actually flying the drone, actually coming over that edge and seeing it for the first time, there's a big kind of like, nope, I'm not doing it kind of thing that comes over you. And you know, if you're a better FPV pilot than I am, then I invite you to come and do it. But like, bring a friend in a small boat, because guaranteed, and you know, waterproof the drone like I've done, because yeah. Anyway, moving on. So as we come around the corner, I kind of look around and I notice this rocky outcrop over there, which is kind of cool. I like to hike a little bit. So I tried to find the path to get out there, but I couldn't, which is kind of annoying. I think it's a bit overgrown. There's some brooks that are also blocking the way. And of course, first thing in my mind is like, ooh, could I get out there? Could I stand on it and fly from that position? A couple of reasons why not. First of all, can't get there. Second of all, it looks really dangerous, like that rock could actually fall at any moment. And for reasons that we'll get to later in the video, signal probably wouldn't be the best for when you actually try flying there with regard to stuff around the headland. So that's a big consideration for where I ended up actually flying from. Now as we're nearing the end of the trail, I look over and I see this dead looking-ish tree. All right, dead looking-ish tree. And yeah, it could have been taken over by Banyan, parasitic fig trees, if you know about that. But basically I think, yeah, I could probably fly through it, but I don't want to be too daring, because this reservoir actually can be up to 23 meters deep at certain points. So if I tried to fly through something like that, and let's say in the feed I didn't quite see some branches, because yes, it's HD, but it's still not perfect, especially if you get some signal issues, you'll lose details like that in the sky. So I don't want to take that chance of maybe losing the drone. doesn't have foam on it, doesn't have any flotation, so gotta be careful. But it's one of those things where I can't see that well down there, which means I'm gonna have to kind of scout the area before, like one of the pre-flights. So yeah, that's kind of this bit. And so that brings us back to this point. We've walked around what's almost a 4-kilometer trail around the reservoir, and we're back here. So why here in particular? Well, if you look carefully at the video, the actual video, this happens to be where I was positioned for the main flight. Now, why? Why here? So, considerations to be made. Signal strength, signal quality. I fly with DJI. The DJI Air unit on board the Roma F5, which I no longer have for reasons that I'll get into later. But basically, there are limitations to that. It runs at 5.8 gigahertz, and that's a fantastic frequency if you've got a lot of data to send. But unfortunately, the shorter wavelength means it's more susceptible to interference. As a result, you've got to be a bit careful with where you decide to stand and place yourself for an entire flight. Now in my case, I actually have the iFlight Crystal HD antennas, which are more directional, so that helps to begin with. But you still want to give yourself the best chance of getting that video signal throughout the entire flight. You don't want to wing it, because halfway out there, you suddenly lose your video feed while you're flying between trees. That's no bueno. So again, why am I here? Well, if you have a look at Google Earth, you can zoom in from Phuket all the way down to the reservoir. You can see the kind of complicated little trail that goes around the reservoir. And you'll notice that there's this little dip, kind of deep section that goes inwards. If we draw a straight line from the furthest point all the way back to the actual dam part of the reservoir, you'll notice that where I happen to be standing is the best place to get the signal line of sight straight into that point. And so for the first flight, this is where I decided to stand, and indeed, when I actually flew it, didn't have any signal issues whatsoever. I don't recall the bit rate dropping significantly. It might have dropped to 25 megabits instead of 50 on occasion, and the latency as well, up and down a little bit, but nothing like when I've flown through fancy villas and having to get that signal to bounce around through thick concrete. So this is definitely the best place to have been. Now, you'll notice in that video, I also flew down the spillway over there. And so here we are. The spillway, if you recognize it from the video. I assume you've watched the video. If you haven't, I'll put it up in the corner there, because you should have watched it by now. Like, I don't know why I have to remind you. But anyway, so the spillway. Here's the thing. The spillway is made of concrete. And that's a significant issue, because if I'm flying from all the way over there, and I've got to go through a gap over there, where there's no line of sight, and not only is there no line of sight, there is significantly thick concrete as well as rock that makes up the dam itself. Guaranteed I'm going to lose signal. So how would I solve that? Well, simple. Seamless transition. As much as a backflip with the sky as the background is a seamless transition, but it works. In the editing room, you simply cut when the first shot is pointing at the sky, second shot, cut it at the same point, smack them together. You don't even need to do a fade. In fact, adding a fade sometimes doesn't work out as well. It's a bit more distracting. And that's how you get it. So where did I stand? Well, at the end of the video, I was standing over there. Basically right on top of the spillway. And in a position that the drone, once it's in the spillway, can't actually see me. But in terms of multipath bouncing around, the signal can definitely get in there. and I was close enough that I feel like even the overall strength of the radio had some level of penetration when you're this close. So that was that. Now the other aspect was the type of drone. You may have noticed, and I've mentioned in the comments already, but you may have noticed that the drone that I start off with is actually the Roma F5, which is an acrobatic / long distance, depending on how you slice it, drone. And that was, fantastic for flying as fast as you can around the circuit. But if you look at the shadow in the spillway, the drone does not look like an acrobatic drone. It looks like a Cinemoop because it was. It's my Reptile Cloud 149 HD thing with my 3D printed slam ducts, which I have a tutorial on designing the slammed duct if you want to see. There, up in the corner. Basically, I decided to do that for safety reasons. And the crucial thing is, if I fly the F5 down there, and let's say I get a glitch from signal not getting through properly or the video cuts out, if I hit the wall, that 5-inch prop gonna shatter, guaranteed. And once you've lost one prop, you ain't flying anymore. You're not getting out of there. And I can't actually find a safe way to get into the spillway or to get out again. There's no ladders or anything. I'd have to bring my own. That would kind of look questionable to the locals. And yeah, it's not something I wanted to challenge. Loud motorcycles. It's a thing. Anyway, so the Cinemoop was the best option, because at least with the Cinemoop, if I smacked into a wall, the duct would somehow protect the prop. And so yeah, I'd probably fall on the ground, but at least I could, reposition myself, get a good signal, and then turtle mode, back level, and then fly out again, because I would have assumed that the prop wouldn't explode and get damaged. So that was a double kind of handy thing. I had limited 6S batteries for the F5, I had 4S batteries for the Cinemoop. All in all, coming to fly everything at the same time, it made sense to fly the main two rounds to get the good shot with the F5 on the 6S batteries, and then I still have 3 extra batteries left over to sort out the final spillway shot with the Cinemoop. And that's basically how that was done. Well, I think this is a pretty good place to end the video. Exactly where I ended the original video, right next to the spillway. So, what have we learned? Or what have I missed? Actually, I missed the hero shot. So, the hero shot is at the very beginning, where you see that grand vista that is the entire reservoir. Now, I've flown regular drones. Mavic Pro is my old DJI drone. And getting shots like that, establishing shots, it's crucial to any kind of production. You get that wow factor, but on that tiny screen, your phone screen, it doesn't quite feel the same as when you're in the goggles, on the drone, and you see that for the first time. So, that first throttle up, just like 100%, get out there, fly out to the side, turn around, and wow, it's an amazing thing. So, very easy to choose your kind of hero shot. And that's kind of a thing. One takes. You have to consider that if you like doing the single take, I love doing the single take, you have to kind of have a purpose to it. You'll notice that in some of my more recent videos, one of the wooden bridge in Chumpon, the wooden bridge in Chumpon, also the red cliffs in Prachuap. Those were videos that I'm not super proud of in terms of the actual flight, purely because there was very little time to really plan or even fly multiple times. The weather wasn't great. I was on a trip with my wife heading north, and you can't just spend the entire day or 2 days or 3 days waiting for the weather to improve and planning out the shot. You just kind of have to get up in the air, fly around and survey, and if you can get a second flight in, fantastic. But the crucial thing is try to keep the flow up. But for something like this, the Chalong Dam, I've been daydreaming about flying the FPV here. You know, I've walked around this dam more than 50 times, maybe more than 100 times, who knows. But having the ability to visualize the whole thing before flying it, I think definitely played a big role in making the video as flowy as it is. And it's different if you're just doing long range, like, you know, across the ocean, line of sight, you know, see how far you can go. You've got that kind of hold your breath feeling. Also mountain surfing, which I've actually got a video coming up that I haven't edited yet. I'm in the middle of editing it. Mountain surfing is another cool thing, and you know, stay tuned for that. Subscribe if you want to see that video. But yeah, like, doing the whole long take, it's definitely something you need to really think about and to try and get it good. And so I think I've done not a bad job here. Things could have been better. Some gaps I could have hit. That gap that I said I definitely don't want to try, I'd like to try that one day if I have a friend in a boat to get the drone for me. But anyway, that's kind of it for now. Now, here's the thing. Some of you were probably more interested in the editing aspect of this whole thing, or like things like GoPro settings and whatnot. So that I'm gonna save for a different video because it's way too long at this point. And so if you're gonna want to see that, mainly like the 3D text, because that's something I used to do when I was a full-time videographer, and it's always fun. It's also a massive headache depending on where you want to put the text, but it's quite fun to do. So if you're interested in that side, and once again, subscribe, because that's going to be the next video, and that'll be a lot easier to shoot because I'll be at home in front of a computer instead of having to walk around a 4-kilometer trail of the location that I flew at, which don't say I don't love you, because it's a long walk. Anyway, that's all for now. If you enjoyed this video, please click like, please. And of course, for the third time, subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Hopefully I'll be able to do more of it because I've got a little bit more free time on my hands these days. But if you don't ask for it, you won't get it. That's a lie. I might do it eventually anyway. But yeah. Thanks for watching, and see you in part 2, maybe. Anyway, some of you asked on that last video how I actually went about planning and shooting the whole damn thing. So, see what I did there? No.